Let me tell you something powerful today. Your identity is not what happened to you. Your identity is what you decide to become after what happened to you. Many people lose themselves not because life was hard, but because they forgot to respect themselves during hard times. Self-respect is not arrogance. It is not pride. It is not pride. It is the quiet decision that says, I deserve dignity, even when I am struggling. When you lose self-respect, you begin to tolerate what breaks you. You accept relationships that drain you. You accept words that hurt you. You accept situations that shrink you. And slowly, without realizing it, you start living as a smaller version of yourself. But here's the educational truth. Identity is constructed. It is shaped by beliefs, reinforced by habits, and protected by boundaries. If you want to rebuild your identity, you must start with the belief that you are worthy of respect, especially from yourself. Pain will try to define you. Failure will try to label you. Society will try to categorize you. But pain is a teacher, not a definition. When something breaks in your life, you have two choices. You either break with it, or you build through it. Self-respect begins when you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can this teach me about who I want to become? Look at your life carefully. Where have you been saying yes when your heart is screaming no? Where have you been shrinking just to be accepted? Every time you betray your own values to please others, you chip away at your identity. Education teaches us mathematics, science, language, but rarely do we learn emotional education. Emotional education teaches you this. Your worth is not negotiable, not in love, not in friendship, not in career. If someone leaves, let them leave. If someone misunderstands you, let them misunderstand you, but never abandon yourself to keep someone else comfortable. Your story is not your shame. Your scars are not your weakness. They are proof that you survived something that was meant to break you. The moment you accept your story without apology, you reclaim your identity. Reclaim your identity requires boundaries. Boundaries are not walls to push people away. They are doors with locks. You decide who enters. You decide what behavior stays. You decide what behavior stays. When you say, this is unacceptable, you are not being rude. You are being responsible for your well-being. And understand this clearly. Identity is not rebuilt in one dramatic moment. It is rebuilt in daily decisions. Every time you wake up and choose discipline over excuses. Every time you wake up and choose discipline over excuses. Respect over desperation. Courage over comfort. You are reconstructing yourself. You are not what they called you. You are not your worst mistake. You are not your limitations. You are a decision. Rebuilding your identity with self-respect means forgiving yourself for the times you tolerated less than you deserved. It means speaking to yourself with kindness instead of criticism. It means refusing to participate in your own humiliation. The most powerful transformation happens when you look in the mirror and say, from today, I will treat myself with dignity. And when you do that, slowly, firmly, consistently, the world begins to treat you differently. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Your identity is not found. It is built, and it is built on the unshakable foundation of self-respect. Start today. Self-respect is not a luxury. It is not something you earn after success. It is not a reward you receive after applause. It is the foundation of who you are. Without it, everything else collapses. You can have talent, beauty, intelligence, opportunities, but if you do not respect yourself, you will sabotage every blessing that comes into your life. Listen carefully. The way you see yourself determines the way you allow others to see you. If deep inside you believe you are not enough, you will tolerate disrespect. You will accept crumbs and call it love. You will accept silence and call it peace. You will accept manipulation and call it patience. And slowly, your identity will start forming around survival instead of strength. Self-respect begins in the invisible conversations you have with yourself. When you make a mistake, do you insult yourself? Or do you correct yourself with maturity? When you fail, do you say, I am useless? Or do you say, I am learning? Identity is shaped by repetition. What you repeatedly tell yourself becomes your internal truth. And your internal truth becomes your external reality. If you don't respect your time, people will waste it. If you don't respect your energy, people will drain it. If you don't respect your energy, people will drain it. If you don't respect your body, people will objectify it. If you don't respect your dreams, people will mock them. It always starts with you. Always. Self-respect means you stop negotiating your values. You stop laughing at jokes that insult you. You stop staying in rooms where your presence is tolerated, but not valued. You stop explaining your worth to people who have already decided not to see it. You stand up internally before you ever stand up externally. Before you ever stand up externally. Understand this clearly. Confidence without self-respect is performance. But confidence built on self-respect is power. When you truly respect yourself, you do not need to shout. You do not need to prove. You do not need to prove. You do not need to compete. Your presence speaks because your identity is stable. You cannot build a strong identity is stable. You cannot build a strong identity on self-doubt. You cannot build a peaceful life on self-betrayal. Every time you say yes, when you mean no, you crack your foundation. Every time you tolerate what hurts you, you weaken your structure. And then you wonder why everything feels unstable. Self-respect is discipline. It is choosing what is right over what is easy. It is walking away from temporary pleasure that costs long-term dignity. It is refusing to chase someone who is comfortable losing you. It is refusing to shrink to fit into spaces that were never meant for your growth. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. If you forgive yourself quickly, you will not beg for forgiveness from others. If you value your growth, you will not fear rejection. If you believe you deserve better, you will stop accepting less. And when you truly understand this, when it hits you deeply, something shifts. You stop being desperate for validation. You stop performing for attention. You stop abandoning yourself for approval. Because you finally realize that the strongest identity is built on one simple, unshakable decision. I will not disrespect myself ever again. Pain is not your prison unless you decide to live inside it. Pain is a teacher, and not a gentle teacher, a strict one. It shakes you. It humbles you. It exposes you. It shows you parts of yourself you never wanted to see. But if you are brave enough to sit with it instead of running from it, pain will educate you in ways comfort never could. Listen to me carefully. Every scar you carry has information. Every disappointment has a lesson attached to it. Every betrayal reveals something, either about others or about the boundaries you failed to set. But most people don't learn. They complain. They blame. They replay their hurt again and again until it becomes their identity. You are not your trauma. You are not your heartbreak. You are not the accident, the rejection, the humiliation, the failure. Those were experiences. They were chapters. They were moments. But they are not your name. Pain has two possible outcomes. It either makes you bitter or it makes you better. And the difference is not the intensity of the pain. It is the interpretation of it. When something breaks in your life, you can say, why is this happening to me? Or you can say, what is this teaching me? That one question changes everything. Pain teaches strength. It teaches clarity. It teaches boundaries. It teaches resilience. When you've been hurt deeply, you begin to understand what truly matters. You stop chasing shallow validation. You stop tolerating nonsense. You start valuing peace. But only if you allow yourself to grow instead of shrinking. Running from pain only delays growth. Numbing from pain only delays growth. Numbing it with distractions, pretending you are fine, smiling while you are shattered. That does not heal you. It traps you. True strength is sitting alone with your tears and saying, this hurts, but this will not define me. You cannot rebuild your identity if you keep blaming your past. At some point, you must take responsibility, not for what happened, but for how you respond to it. That is maturity. That is power. Look at your struggles differently. That is power. Look at your struggles differently. That betrayal taught you to recognize red flags. That failure taught you to prepare better. That rejection redirected you to something greater. That loss forced you to become emotionally independent. Every painful moment was shaping you, sharpening you, preparing you. But here is the danger. If you let pain turn into self-pity, you will start living like a victim. How can It's crispy and like a victim. And victims surrender their power. Do not surrender your power. Feel the pain, yes. Cry if you must. Break down if you need to. But then stand up. Analyze it. Extract the lesson. Grow from it. The strongest identities are not built in comfort. They are built in adversity. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Muscles grow under resistance. Character is forged in difficulty. So why are you ashamed of your struggles? They are proof that life tested you, and you are still here. Pain is not a prison, unless you decide to lock the door from the inside. It can be your greatest teacher if you stop fighting it and start learning from it. And when you learn from your pain instead of being defined by it, you transform it into power, into wisdom, into strength that no one can ever take away from you. Stop begging for validation. Stop looking around the room to see who is clapping before you decide whether you are worthy. Stop measuring your value by how quickly someone replies, how loudly they praise you, how often they choose you. How often they choose you. That is emotional dependence, not entity. Listen carefully. When you need constant approval, you give other people control over your self-esteem. And the moment they withdraw attention, you collapse. Why? Because you built your confidence on their reactions instead of your own conviction. Validation feels good. Yes. Applause feels powerful. Compliments feel warm. But if you depend on them, you become addicted. You start adjusting your behavior to keep the approval flowing. You speak differently. You dress differently. You hide opinions. You silence boundaries. You perform. And slowly, without realizing it, you stop being authentic. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you said yes just to avoid rejection? How many times have you stayed quiet because you feared being disliked? How many times have you tolerated disrespect because you were afraid of being alone? That is what happens when validation becomes your oxygen. You do not need everyone to understand you. You do not need everyone to agree with you. You do not need everyone to agree with you. You do not need everyone to like you. You need to like yourself. You need to approve of your own decisions. You need to respect your own standards. When you approve yourself first, something changes inside you. You stop chasing. You stop explaining. You stop defending every choice. You become calm. You become grounded. Because your worth is no longer on trial. Understand this deeply. People's opinions are unstable. Today they praise you. Tomorrow they criticize you. Tomorrow they criticize you. Today they support you. Tomorrow they doubt you. If you build your identity on their voices, you will live in constant emotional chaos. Self-approval is different. It is quiet. It is steady. It says, even if nobody claps, I know my effort. It says, even if nobody sees my growth, I see it. It says, even if I stand alone, I stand with integrity. And let me tell you something powerful. When you stop begging for validation, you become magnetic. Why? Because confidence rooted in self-respect is attractive. Desperation repels. Assurance attracts. Stop posting just to be noticed. Stop over-explaining just to be accepted. Stop over-giving just to be chosen. If someone cannot see your value, do not reduce your value to fit their vision. Raise your standards instead. The moment you say, I approve of myself, you reclaim your power. You stop fearing rejection because rejection no longer threatens your identity. You stop fearing criticism because criticism no longer defines your worth. You were not born to perform for acceptance. You were born to live with authenticity. Approve yourself first. Respect yourself first. Validate yourself first. And when you do, the world's applause becomes a bonus, not a necessity. Your story is not your shame. Read that again in your heart. The things you hide, the chapters you avoid, the memories that still make your voice shake. Those are not evidence that you are weak. They are evidence that you survived something heavy. But when you treat your story like a secret crime, you give it power over you. How long will you keep apologizing for what you have lived through? How long will you introduce yourself as if your past is a stain? You are not the divorce. You are not the failure. You are not the rejection. You are not the mistake. Those are events. They happened, yes, but they are not your identity, unless you keep rehearsing them as your definition. The problem is not the story. The problem is the meaning you attach to it. If you say this happened because I am not enough, then your confidence collapses. If you say this happened and it taught me strength, then your posture changes. Same story, different power. Stop shrinking when someone asks about your past. Stop lowering your eyes when your scars are visible. Those scars are proof of resilience. You understand that. You went through something that could have destroyed you, and you are still standing. That is not shameful. That is powerful. When you hide your story, you live divided. One part of you is real, and the other part is pretending. That division drains your energy. It makes you anxious. It makes you fearful of being exposed. But when you accept your story fully, honestly, you become whole. Wholeness is strength. You do not have to announce your pain to the world. You do not have to tell everyone every detail. But you must stop running from it internally. Sit with it. Look at it. Own it. Say, yes, this is part of my journey, and I am still worthy. Some of you feel embarrassed about your financial struggles. Some of you feel ashamed of toxic relationships you tolerated. Some of you feel guilty about mistakes you made when you were younger and immature. Listen carefully. Growth means you are not the same person anymore. Listen carefully. Growth means you are not the same person. The fact that you feel uncomfortable about your past is proof that you evolved. If you erase your story, you erase your growth. Your struggles gave you empathy. Your failures gave you wisdom. Your heartbreak gave you emotional intelligence. Your challenges gave you perspective. Why are you ashamed of the very things that shaped your strength? When you accept your story, something shifts. You stop fearing judgment. You stop fearing rejection. Because even if someone judges your past, you are no longer at war with it. And when you are not at war with yourself, nobody can use your story against you. Your identity becomes solid when it includes every chapter, the victories and the defeats, the confidence and the insecurity, the light and the darkness. That is authenticity. That is power. Do not let your past silence your present. Do not let your mistakes cancel your potential. Your story is not a burden to carry. It is evidence of your survival, your evolution, your resilience, and when you finally embrace it without apology, you transform it into strength that commands respect. Without even asking for it, boundaries are not cruelty. They are clarity. They are the bold, unapologetic declaration that says, this is where I end and you begin. And if you don't define that line, people will cross it. Not always because they are evil, but because you never told them where the limit was. You say you are tired of being used, tired of being misunderstood, tired of giving more than you receive. But let me ask you something directly. Did you ever say no? Did you ever express what hurts you? Did you ever communicate what you will no longer tolerate? Or did you stay silent, hoping people would magically understand? Silence is not a boundary. Resentment is not a boundary. Resentment is not a boundary. Complaining to others is not a boundary. A boundary is spoken. It is expressed. It is enforced. When you lack boundaries, you slowly abandon yourself. You cancel your plans to please others. You accept disrespect to avoid conflict. You overextend your energy because you fear disappointing people. And then you feel angry. Not just at them, but at yourself. Boundaries are a form of self-love because they protect your peace. And peace is not selfish. Peace is necessary. You must understand this. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will resist when you create them. They will call you dramatic. They will call you selfish. They will say you've changed. Yes, you have changed. You stopped allowing what drains you. And that is growth. A boundary does not require shouting. It requires firmness. You do not need to insult. You do not need to attack. You simply say, I am not comfortable with that. You say, I cannot do that. You say, if this continues, I will step away. And then, listen carefully, you follow through. Because a boundary without consequence is just a suggestion. If someone repeatedly disrespects you, and you continue staying, you are teaching them that your words are flexible. But when you walk away calmly, when you remove access, when you protect your time, you teach people that your self-respect is non-negotiable. Boundaries are not walls to isolate you. They are filters. They allow healthy people to stay and unhealthy behavior to leave. They protect your emotional health. They protect your mental clarity. They protect your identity. They protect your identity. And let me tell you something powerful. When you start setting boundaries, your confidence grows. Why? Because every time you defend your limits, you send yourself a message. I matter. And that internal message strengthens your identity. You cannot rebuild who you are while allowing constant violations of your peace. You cannot grow while being pulled in every direction by other people's expectations. Boundaries give you space to breathe, space to think, space to evolve. So stop apologizing for protecting your energy. Stop feeling guilty for choosing your well-being. You are not responsible for everyone's comfort. You are responsible for your integrity. Boundaries are self-respect in action. They are love expressed with strength. And when you learn to set them without fear, without aggression, without guilt, without guessing, without guilt, you step into a level of personal power where your presence alone communicates that you will not tolerate anything that diminishes your worth. Rebuilding is not a one-time decision. It is not a dramatic moment where everything suddenly changes overnight. It is daily. It is repetitive. It is intentional. Identity is not destiny written in stone. It is a decision you make again and again, especially on the days you feel weak. You wake up one morning motivated. You feel powerful. You promise yourself you will never tolerate disrespect again. Never doubt yourself again. Never shrink again. That's beautiful. But the real test comes the next day, and the next, and the next, and the next. Because rebuilding your identity is not about intensity. It is about consistency. Every day you are either reinforcing your old identity or constructing a new one. If you want to become disciplined, you must act disciplined when nobody is watching. If you want to become confident, you must speak with courage, even when your voice shakes. If you want to become confident, you must speak with courage, even when your voice shakes. If you want to become self-respecting, you must walk away from what tempts your insecurity. It is daily construction. Brick by brick, choice by choice. Stop waiting for a perfect moment to transform. There is no perfect moment. There is only this moment. The decision you make right now shapes who you become tomorrow. You say you want change, but do your habits reflect that? You say you want respect, but do your actions demand it? You say you want growth, but are you willing to endure discomfort? Because growth is uncomfortable. Rebuilding is uncomfortable. Becoming stronger than your excuses is uncomfortable. But comfort built your old limitations. If you want a new identity, you must interrupt your old patterns. When your old self wants to send that desperate message, pause. When your old self wants to accept less than you deserve, pause. When your old self wants to procrastinate, complain, blame, pause. That pause is power. That pause is the moment you choose differently. Identity is shaped by repetition. If you repeat self-doubt, you become insecure. If you repeat courage, you become confident. If you repeat discipline, you become reliable. The brain adapts to what you practice. So practice strength, practice self-control, practice dignity, and listen carefully. You will fail sometimes. You will slip. You will fall into old habits. That does not mean you are back at the beginning, it means you are human. The difference now is awareness. The difference now is that you stand up faster. Do not destroy weeks of growth because of one mistake. Do not say, "This is just who I am." No. Who you are is what you repeatedly choose. Rebuilding your identity means you stop identifying with your past behaviors. You stop saying, "I am insecure." Instead, you say, "I am learning confidence." You stop saying, "I am weak." Instead, you say, "I am becoming stronger." Every morning is a vote for the person you want to be. Every decision is a vote. Every boundary, every disciplined action, every moment of self-respect is a vote. And when you keep voting for your higher self, even when it's hard, even when it's lonely, even when it's lonely, even when nobody notices, you slowly transform into someone unrecognizable to your old limitations. Someone built by intention, strengthened by discipline, and defined not by destiny, but by daily courageous decisions.